In a letter sent to Acting Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan and DHS Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen on Monday, Maryland Representatives Elijah Cummings, Anthony Brown and Jamie Raskin, as well as California Representative Jackie Speier praised the swift action taken by federal agencies to arrest Christopher Hasson before he could carry out his alleged plans, but expressed concern that an individual that espouses these views could repeatedly serve in the military across multiple services. This latest incident is another in a series that tarnishes the proud legacy of the United States Armed Forces, the Democratic lawmakers wrote in their letter asking Nielsen and Shanahan to provide more information on the kinds of policies and procedures their respective departments have in place to screen recruits for supremacist or extremist ties, and how Lieutenant Hasson and other military service members with ties to extremist movements were able to circumvent such checks. In a phone interview with NewsPulse News Monday, Maryland Representative Jamie Raskin, one of the signatories of the letter, compared the very disturbing pattern that has begun to emerge of racist and white supremacist activity taking place in the armed forces, to the issue of sexual assault and sexual harassment within the military. It just doesn't have any place there. Hasson, who reportedly lives with his wife in Silver Spring, Maryland, had allegedly named Sen Blumenthal, presumably a derogatory reference to Senator Richard Blumenthal, D-Con, among a high-profile hit list that prosecutors say he'd compiled of Democratic politicians and cable news commentators. Concerns over right-wing extremists in the military goes back decades. Timothy McVeigh, who killed 168 people in the 1995 bombing of the Oklahoma City Federal Building, was a veteran of the Gulf War. Wade Michael Page, who murdered 6 people at a Sikh temple in Wisconsin in 2012, served in the Army. Fraser Glenn Miller, a Vietnam veteran, killed 3 people while targeting a Jewish center in Kansas in 2014. And James Alex Fields, who murdered Heather Heyer at the 2017 Charlottesville rally, served briefly in the Army in 2015 but was released after failing to meet training standards. A 2017 poll of service members from the Military Times found a quarter of respondents said they had seen white nationalism in the ranks. The number was even higher among non-white troops, with 42% of minorities reporting they had seen white nationalism. According to Elizabeth Yates and Patrick James, researchers at the University of Maryland's Study of Terrorism and Responses to Terrorism program, Hasson's profile is not unusual for a far-right extremist. Their data finds that far-right extremists are, on average, older, 38 years, than far-left, 30, or Islamist, 29, extremists at the time that they are exposed, typically through arrest. Right-wing extremists are also more likely to have served, with 23% having military experience versus 10% of left-wing extremists and 9% of Islamists in their database. James told NewsPulse News that it's not just active duty members and veterans being radicalized but also white supremacists joining the military to get combat training. A Washington Post report last week found that immigrants face more scrutiny than white supremacists when enlisting. Extremist organizations actively seek out active and veteran members of the military, said James. A lot of these groups really value the types of experience, tactical training, leadership ability that you get in the military, so often now these groups are actively encouraging people to go and join the military to get that experience and then bring those skills back to their extremist groups. That's another thing we need to look out for in terms of these groups actively seeking those types of experience. In 1996, following the Oklahoma City bombing, which was partially inspired by the far-right group National Alliance, and the racially motivated murder of a black couple by Army paratroopers, the Pentagon launched an investigation into extremists in the armed services. A 2009 study from the Department of Homeland Security stated that extremist groups would likely target disgruntled veterans returning from deployment. The willingness of a small percentage of military personnel to join extremist groups during the 1990s because they were disgruntled, disillusioned, or suffering from the psychological effects of war is being replicated today, the report said. Last year a report by ProPublica and Frontline PBS found that the hate group Atomwaffen Division, which has been connected to at least 5 murders, had ties to active duty service members and veterans. They flagged one Marine, Vasil Elios Pistolis, as a participant in the violence at the deadly Charlottesville rally. The investigation found that Pistolis, who left Atomwaffen for another neo-Nazi group over a dispute in late 2017, had white nationalist viewpoints prior to joining the military. Following the report, Pistolis was found guilty at a summary court-martial and subsequently booted from the Marines last year. The report also found that Army veteran Joshua Beckett had trained the Atomwaffen's members in firearms and hand-to-hand combat. In the group's chats, Beckett wrote that he suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder and explained how his time in the service had influenced his views. "The army itself woke me up to race and the war woke me up to the Jews," wrote Beckett. Complicating matters is that some of the groups are starting to train their members on how to avoid looking like a white supremacist. We have also seen from reporting and scholarship outside our database that in this recruiting they're also encouraging members if they do join to avoid signals that might tell a recruiter that they're extremist, said Yates, the University of Maryland. Saying, "Don't get tattoos, grow your hair long," and we just don't know to what extent that's being implemented. The origins of Hasson's alleged white nationalism and extremist beliefs are still unknown. At a hearing last week, prosecutors indicated that they would likely file terrorism-related charges against Hasson within the next 14 days. A DHS spokesperson declined on Monday to comment on the letter from lawmakers, and the Defense Department did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Raskin told News Pulse News that the group of congressional members who signed the letter would likely give both department heads a week or so to respond to their request, but that they were open to exploring other avenues of addressing the issue, such as potential hearings or meetings with military leadership. "It's something that we want to pursue very aggressively," said Raskin. "We can't sweep this problem under the rug. We have to get on top of it now,"